rumor. BBC in panic mode with complete Doctor Who reboot incoming. Well, they definitely should be in panic mode. They should have been in panic mode a long time ago. But, boy, when you're in the bubble, you can't see or hear anything of reality, you know. So anyway, here's the story from Fandom Pulse. Hey, look, it's Doctor Who. What? No, it is. Well, actually, it's the moment looking like Rose. But Shooty Gatwa regenerated into, yeah. Anyway, the future of Doctor Who has been uncertain since DP declined to renew its partnership with the BBC following the cancellation of the Shooty Gatwa era in 2025. Now, according to sources close to the production, the BBC is exploring an option that would have been unthinkable even a year ago. A complete reboot of the franchise. The BBC are planning talks with various streaming platforms about potentially launching a complete reboot of Doctor Who. Star Whovian posted to X. It is the thought that total creative control would be handed to the agreed partner, with a brand new first Doctor leading the show. Yeah, I don't think a reboot would work. Yeah. Disney's involvement with Doctor Who began in 2023 with considerable fanfare. The streaming giant would handle international distribution for new episodes, providing production funding that the BBC desperately needed. Yeah, for some reason, they just burned through money. I wonder why that is. The partnership was positioned as a new era for the franchise with global reach, bigger budgets, and the resources to compete with prestige streaming content. It lasted 2 years. Yeah. Sorry, Shooty. Well, I mean, that's what he did in every episode. Almost every 5 minutes. Shooty Gatwa's first season, marketed as season 1. He was almost kind of teasing like it was some sort of reboot. And I guess it was because, you know, he never played the Doctor. He's playing the Doctor's clone. Kind of like, I don't know, his son. He's like Dr. Jr. So technically, he's the first new Doctor. You know, it was weird and stupid. So I guess it kind of was Series 1, yeah? Or Series 14, depending on how you count. Premiered in May 2024 to mixed reception. The consolidated 7-day ratings averaged 3.80 million viewers in the UK, the lowest of any modern Doctor Who era. His second season in 2025 performed even worse, with overnight figures frequently dropping below 2 million and consolidated numbers struggling to reach 3 million. Disney never publicly released viewership data for the show's performance on their platform. The silence was telling. When a streaming service is proud of a show's performance, they announce it. When they're not, they say nothing. Yeah. In early 2025, reports emerged that Disney would not be commissioning a third season. The BBC initially denied this, with Bad Wolf Productions, the production company behind the show, issuing statements that Gatwa was contracted through 2028 and that production would continue. Those statements, as it turns out, were not accurate. Well, he probably had signed a contract, but they knew the show was going down the crapper, so they went ahead and let him out of it so he could go pursue other work, you know, because he's like, well, this ship is sinking, you know. Then you got to move on, you know. So that part was probably, odds are, true. And they anticipated or hoping, hey, maybe we'll get another little season. We can just do that. And they said, nah, we're not burning money for you. So So anyway, the show was canceled. Gauntlet's contract was either terminated or simply not exercised. Sorry, I should have read ahead. Beyond the already filmed episodes, and Disney walked away from the partnership entirely. Yeah, there was no way they were going to make their money back. The end of Gauntlet's era came with a twist. The 2025 finale revealed that former Doctor Who companion star Billie Piper had somehow regenerated into the Doctor. The episode ended on a cliffhanger, with no explanation for how this was possible or what it meant for the show's continuity. Well, the explanation for how it's possible has already been established, that there's subliminal, inspiration to the Doctor, of unconsciously changing into faces he's seen before. So that's the explanation for how Colin Baker got to be the successor to Peter Davison, because, what's his name, Maxwell, who shot the Doctor when it was Peter Davison, so he takes on his face because, hey, it's kind of stuck in his head later on. And then Peter Capaldi, they actually made it part of the storyline that when the David Tennant's Doctor was being heroic and saving the people from Pompeii, and this Roman guy that Peter Capaldi was playing was looking up at him and grateful that he was being rescued. And so that left a mental image in the Doctor's mind, and it resurfaces later in a regeneration. So that was their explanation. Not that they really had to, but, they did. So it establishes this sort of thing can happen. And so, well, good Lord, you've already established the Doctor can change sex, all of a sudden. And so of the women in his life, how important Rose was, that face is definitely in his mind, despite regenerating out of a gay man. But nevertheless, there it was. And so he turns into, a reasonable facsimile thereof of his former girlfriend, So there you go. There's not a whole lot of need for explanation, but unless it was something it signaled something or whatever to do with like the moment or something like that. Probably not. It was just a stunt in the hopes that would be enough excitement and show buzz for someone else to say, let's give Doctor Who another shot. Yeah. So Russell T Davies, who returned as showrunner in Duty 3 to revive the franchise after the Jodie Whittaker era's poor reception, is reportedly writing one more special episode to air at the end of Duty 6. That episode will resolve the Rose Doctor situation and serve as Davies' final contribution to the franchise. Yeah, trying to close the gate after he long since let the cows out. So in a recent interview, Davies admitted he had no knowledge of what comes next. There's nothing to report. Nothing's happening. You'll know when you know. When we know. I don't know. He said conversations are between the BBC and Disney. I don't work for either of them. I work for Bad Wolf. So I'm not a part of those rooms. So I literally don't know. But you're the writer. So what becomes of the Rose moment Billie Piper Doctor? Yeah. And then you got to resolve this dumb crap where you split Doctor Who in two. You're going to have to get David Tennant to come back. And there you go. That's probably one of the rumors that, maybe they'll reunite Billie Piper and David Tennant, except they're playing the same character. Oh, dear God. Yeah. Now, if they did an episode that undoes the Timeless Child crap, that sort of thing, and that this was all some bizarre fever dream as a result of the toy collector, okay. And okay, there, it's fixed. Now you can start over with a new Doctor in some other show. As, I don't know, David Tennant regenerates this time again, and it just goes to black because they're not going to cast a new Doctor yet. Yeah, because he's the real Doctor. They didn't see all this hype about first black man, first gay actor, whatever, all that stuff. You wouldn't even let him actually be the Doctor. He's not even in the TARDIS. It's a new clone of the TARDIS. It was so absurd. And you deliberately did that. It's bizarre. So anyway, that was before the Disney deal collapsed. Now with Disney out of the picture entirely, the BBC is left scrambling to find a new partner willing to fund a show that has hemorrhaged viewers and cultural relevance over the past several years because of your quote-unquote creative choices for it. The reason you want to cling to something like Doctor Who is it has the potential to bring in more money, not just through viewers, but through merchandise. A lot of your other stuff just doesn't do that. But when you damage the brand for years, once again, you're another entity that's created a Mount Everest-sized hill to climb. The numbers tell a brutal story. Christopher Eccleston's 2005 series averaged 7.95 million consolidated viewers. David Tennant's first era averaged 8.35 million. Matt Smith averaged 7.98 million despite lower overnight figures. See, the decline was already starting. Now, Matt Smith did some good shows, and he was a good Doctor. I was dubious of him at first, but he won me over. But it was in decline because things were getting repetitive. That's a serious problem for shows overall. Plus, they would tease a lot of stuff, and it never really paid off. And that's annoying. So it's starting to drift away. Plus, the template that they came up with is the Doctor as a romantic hero. And they only went through with that with the Doctor and Rose. After that, he'd flirt with the girls and stuff like that, but nothing really came of it. And it stands to reason you don't want to be repetitive, and yet that romantic hero fantasy type thing is really what drew in their new female audience. It went a long way for that. And it worked. But how do you keep it going? Well... So anyway, demonstrating the shift to time-shifted viewing. Anyway, Peter Capaldi averaged 6.42 million. Now, Peter Capaldi was the best of these Doctors. Problem is, his stories weren't that great. He just didn't get the scripts worthy of his talent. David Tennant got the best. If Capaldi could have gotten the caliber of those scripts, holy crap. But there again, maybe he was already, I hate to say it, for the audience they had garnered, maybe he was too old. They weren't going to go for that. They wanted romantic hero Doctor. Well, you can't do that with these really young companions. It kind of worked with River Song as they were, closer in contemporary ages and stuff. But, they weren't really going to do much. I mean, they did. They resolved the story and all that, but... Anyway, Jodie Whittaker averaged 6.13 million. Both represented declines, but the show remained among BBC One's stronger dramas, so there was still some amount of hope, but you were really spiraling around the toilet bowl at that point. You needed to change course and fix the damage done. I can't put it on Jodie. I mean, she really didn't even try. She admitted it as much, saying, she didn't really study Doctor Who at all. All she knew was David Tennant, whom she tried to do a bad impression of, See, Matt Smith, he studied up on it, and he figured it out, and it was interesting because he was a young man, but he was playing a young man with an old man's soul. Whereas Whittaker comes in, and they should have established, no, she's the only female Doctor the Doctor's ever been. If you're going to go through with this, I mean, they did, then you could have had quite a few episodes of that, of dealing with it, and how would Jodie approach this, that in her mind, she's still a man, and that sort of thing. But, they're stupid. They had to do it, but they don't really do anything with it. Whatever. Then came Ncuti Gatwa. 3.80 million average viewers across 18 episodes, a collapse of nearly 40% from Whitaker's already diminished numbers. The show that once regularly pulled 10-plus million viewers for major episodes now struggles to reach 4 million, even for season finales. The spinoff, The War Between the Land and the Sea, I forgot all about that, didn't bother watching it, well, it performed even worse, averaging just 2.47 million viewers, despite featuring beloved returning characters and being positioned as an event series. Well, right off the bat, it's the war between humanity and the Sea Devils. The Sea Devils being classic Doctor Who villains. Oh no, you can't call them that anymore because Russell thinks it's racist. So they had to be renamed Aqua Homo. You see, that kind of crap is like, yeah, never mind. And the thing is, when they announced he was coming back, people got excited. Because they think, well, his run was really successful. And so he'll come in and salvage this dying brand and fix the crap that just happened to it. No, he doubled down. And he did even worse than what Chibnall had done, which is an astounding feat unto itself. But, the timeless child, it needs to be eradicated. You have to get that out of there. You can't leave that there. There's so many problems that it creates, unnecessarily so. That was just so stupid. And of course, he already announced, no, I'm not doing that. So I thought, well, your best hope is they would just ignore it and do basic Doctor Who. But no, that special he did before David Tennant's Christmas specials, they did 3 episodes. He did that stupid thing with Davros. And he said, oh, yeah, Davros has to look like this now because it was ableist or anti-ableist, whatever. Yeah, it was derogatory to people in wheelchairs to have a villain in, his little dialect space wheelchair. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? It's just massive, deliberate brand damage. Your classic villain. No, he can't look like he's just some guy in a black suit now. So that told you everything the show was, because that's all it was. Very little emphasis on plot, characters, and character development, or any of that stuff. No. And concepts for what the episodes were. That's why he just started relying on magic and gods and stuff, so you could just make it up as you go along, that sort of thing, and you don't have to explain anything. It was ridiculous. And all he wanted to do was preach about, pronouns and all that stuff, and that was it. To where it was so incredibly stupid where they're, browbeating the Doctor over not being a woman when he had just been a woman 5 minutes ago. A real one. With ovaries and everything. See, they don't think. Anyway, these aren't just bad numbers. They're catastrophic. They represent a franchise that has lost its audience and shows no signs of recovering it under the current creative direction. So you're going to reboot. A complete reboot would be unprecedented for Doctor Who. The show's entire premise is built on regeneration, the ability to replace the lead actor while maintaining continuity. Every Doctor from William Hartnell in 1963 to Shutagawa in 3 exists in the same timeline with the same history building on what came before. Jodie Whittaker's era felt like a soft reboot. Chris Chibnall, her showrunner, introduced the timeless child concept that retroactively changed the Doctor's origin and violated decades of established canon. The backlash was immediate and sustained. Right. You see, if you announce we're retconning that, we're getting rid of it, that would be an immediate boost in interest in a future Doctor Who. But so you'll do a reboot for a new show called Doctor Who that has nothing to do with Doctor Who. And this is, like I said, this is a show it's built into it. You can keep it going. And you only have to have minimal callbacks to previous ones. You're going to do it every now and then, but not all the time. And sometimes they do it too much, But that's about it. So Russell T Davies' return in 2023 felt like another soft reboot. He largely ignored Chibnall's changes. No, he didn't. No, he didn't. He brought back David Tennant for anniversary specials and attempted to recapture the energy of his original 2005-2010 run. It didn't work. The audience didn't return. Well, yeah, I think that special he showed with the Davros thing, they're like, and once he'd already said, I'm not getting rid of the Timeless Child. And that aspect was mentioned in the second David Tennant special. So it's not like he ignored it. He didn't. So they kept it very much a part of the Doctor's lore. So now the BBC is apparently considering a hard reboot. Wipe the slate clean, start over, hand creative control to a streaming partner and let them build something new from scratch. The problem is that reboots rarely work. Star Trek tried it in 2009 with J.J. Abrams' films. They were financially successful, well, certainly the first one was, but divisive among fans and failed to sustain a film franchise beyond 3 movies. Star Trek Dysentery attempted another reboot. It was a retcon, in 2017, setting the series in the original timeline, but radically different with radically different aesthetics and tone. Yeah, it wasn't just the aesthetics. I mean, they retconned the history and stuff. It was ridiculous. So it might as well have been a reboot. If they just said, yeah, this has nothing to do with the original series. We're just starting over with a new Star Trek, and said that's what they were doing. It would still be crap because they didn't know how to write or nothing, but at least it would be that. I mean, that's what it looks like. It bears no resemblance or connection to anything established in the previous shows. Anyway, it alienated longtime fans and failed to build a sustainable new audience, leading to cancellation after 5 seasons. The only successful reboot, well, look, Doctor Who would kill for 5 seasons right now. Come on. The only successful reboot in science fiction television history is arguably Battlestar Galactica 2004, which took a campy 1970s series and transformed it into a prestige drama. That worked because the original show had limited cultural cachet and a small fan base. Well, that's the thing. And I've always thought when you're going to reboot something, the real impressive challenge would be to go look for something that failed. I mean, Battlestar Galactica, the original, was bringing in great ratings, but it was just too damn expensive of a show to do. And they had to stop it. They couldn't keep it going. So that's how that happened. But nevertheless, the serious reboot was, superior in a lot of ways. But, and of course, if you know the full story of it and how things repeat over and over, who's to say they're not in the same universe? It's just the story keeps repeating over and over. Anyway, Doctor Who is different. It has 60 years of history, millions of devoted fans worldwide, in a format that already allows for reinvention without rebooting. Yes, the tools are there within it. Now look, with time travel and multiverse, you could posit that there's another universe with a different Doctor and his life goes differently or what have you. But that's like a side story or something. You're going to build a whole new series out of that. You got to fix the crap you did. Just say it was bullshit, the master lied, whatever. Omega did it. I don't care. And then you're off to a new Doctor that someone else, if they're willing to gamble their money on, can take the baton and run with it. The beauty of Doctor Who's regeneration concept is that it allows for change without erasure. Each Doctor is different, but they're all the same character. When the 10th Doctor meets Sarah Jane Smith, it's meaningful because she traveled with the 3rd and 4th Doctors decades earlier. When the 11th Doctor encounters the Daleks, the weight of their history informs the confrontation. A reboot throws all of that away. Do we really need to see the Doctor meet the Daleks for the first time again? Do we need another origin story explaining the Time Lords and Gallifrey? Do we need to reestablish the TARDIS, the sonic screwdriver, the basic premise of the show? No, you don't. The regeneration model already allows for fresh starts. Cast a new doctor, hire a new showrunner, take the show in a new direction. You don't need to reboot to do that. You just need to respect what came before while building something new. But boy, are they in a terrible hole right now, you know. Handing total creative control to a streaming partner is a gamble. Yeah, but at this point, anybody controlling it other than the BBC. Because that's been a major problem. Because they're nuts over there, you know. And all this time, and so many warning signs, had plenty of time to course correct. Would not do it. So now, yes, panic mode would put them in finally, oh my God, what do we do? Where you have to consider someone, because it's the only way you can get a new deal. Because, you know, that experiment with Disney, look how that went. So it means the BBC would no longer control the direction of one of its most valuable intellectual properties. A streaming service would make all creative decisions. This could work if the right partner is found. Yeah, you're going to have someone who understands the character in the show to run it for you. If you at least do that. And you better bone up on this stuff. Yeah? Otherwise, forget it. A service that understands the franchise, respects its history, and has the resources to produce quality television could potentially revive Doctor Who in a way the BBC has failed to do. But it could also go disastrously wrong. Well, at this point, yeah. I mean, the Doctor Who is dead. Can you regenerate it? I'm dubious. But it's, gee, well, you know, what's the worst that can happen? We've seen it. So a partner focused on chasing trends, inserting ideological messaging, or simply trying to replicate whatever's currently popular on streaming could produce something that bears the Doctor Who name, but has none of its spirit. The BBC is reportedly shopping the property to multiple platforms. Now that has been rumored quite a bit. I think they've even admitted this much. So there's probably a lot of credence to this scenario. So Netflix, Amazon Prime Video, and Apple TV Plus are the obvious candidates. Each has deep pockets and global reach. Each also has very different approaches to content and very different track records with science fiction. What do you think? Is a complete reboot the answer to Doctor Who's problems? No. Or would it be the final nail in the coffin for a once great franchise? It wouldn't be the final nail. It's in the coffin. That thing is nailed shut and buried. But can he regenerate one more time? It's actually quite simple. It's not that hard, but odds are, you know. But I don't know. Are any of these networks like, says, yeah, man, I really hate to leave it the way it is. You know, we could ink a deal for maybe 3 seasons or something like that. And 3 seasons, that's what, 6 episodes a season? You know? And so you do that. And I don't know. What if it takes off? Then you got something, you know. But you got to have respect for it, and you've got to get rid of the brand damage that these idiots did. Gee, that's going to be embarrassing. Everybody knows it. Why? Because you have to be the one to say it out loud. Yeah. Chibnall and Davies went out of their way to destroy this brand. All with the applause of the BBC. So, yeah, seeking this out is the desperation for the BBC having to admit, we don't know what we're doing. And so at this point, the only thing you can do is say, look, we'll give you full creative control. Now, the other caveat here is they want to keep all the classic Doctor Who on BritBox. Well, a new deal probably will include them saying, yeah, we want those too. We want, original Doctor Who. Not just the new stuff that you had since 2005. No, all of it. And we'll run those on our streaming service. So, there's this whole Doctor Who tab and whatnot. Well, maybe not a full tab. But anyway, they can advertise that. And what's this Doctor Who all about? Well, check it out. Classic Doctor Who and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, we want to really hold on to... You're not in a position to negotiate that. So, you're broke. You screwed up. You were stupid. And this is the position you're in. So you're going to have to pretty much hand it over. And hopefully they figure it out, and then you cash the checks they send you. This is where you put yourself. Hey, you know what? There's a big lesson here. You might want to rethink your crazy sermons and whatnot. And maybe understand how to write scripts and stuff like that, And what adventure is and stuff, Maybe that. Well, anyway, yeah, I'm sure there's discussions of this nature. With rumors, sometimes they're true, sometimes they're untrue. A lot of times they're somewhere in between. So odds are a deal like this gets shopped around. But will there be any takers? Well, they've already seen this kind of sort of play out with Disney. Because I don't know how much creative control Disney had over it. Of course, Disney's so woke, they were probably fine with a lot of it that Davies wanted to do. So, and that's the other problem. Which of these idiot streamers are going to figure out this lesson here that the BBC had to learn in a very harsh way, to where they're on their knees, begging. Oh, well, we'll see.